So my name is Chris. I am a full-time public school teacher in New Jersey. My kids right now are probably harassing my substitute. But being from New Jersey really means two things, is I talk really fast and I curse a lot. But I'm probably going to talk really fast, maybe not curse so much, just because I want to jam in as much as we can in this 40-minute session. I've been using Google in education before Google in education was a thing. I had my kids set up outside emails and start to use their tools before they got into education. And Google's really good about kind of reaching out and have collaborated with me on a number of things because they saw the way I was using the tools in the classroom. And so that's what I want to show you today, is how I've used Google in my classroom to fundamentally change what I do. And really it comes down to two things. Number one is to make your lives as a teacher easier and to make learning more engaging for students. And so I know that we have 7th through high school here. I'm going to focus on maybe a little bit more of the mature way to use it, a little bit more of the in-depth way to use some of the management tools that's going to make your life a lot easier, rather than I was doing some fun, K through 6 stuff with Google Slides. I'm going to kind of give you more of the management perspective that's really going to help you run a classroom, because my understanding is that we're going one-to-one soon if we're not already there, right? And so if you haven't taught in a one-to-one environment, it can be tough if you're not prepared, right? And so that's what I want to start with you first is, I've been one-to-one going on almost 7 years now. We started out just using cell phones. When I used to teach high school English, I taught English for 10 years. We started out with cell phones. And so managing a classroom with cell phones that eventually transitioned to one-to-one Chromebooks, anything that can happen has happened to me. And so if I can prevent any of that suffering with you, right, I definitely want to do that. And so it kind of starts out like this. It may seem silly, right? But technology for technology's sake, right, we know it doesn't work. We know it's all about how you use the tool, what you do with it. And so there's a lot of technology tools, there's a lot of tricks, right? One of my favorites is shortcuts, right? Shortcuts are a great way to save teachers time. And so for instance, maybe you're like me and used to backspace a whole lot of times just by hitting the backspace button, right? Maybe you know that if you hit Control-Z, you can undo a mistake that you did. And then if you hit the backspace button with Control, you can delete the whole word at the same time. Right? There's little tricks like that that can make a big difference, right? Save you some time. But maybe you know that, right? Maybe that's not so impressive. Maybe you're like, oh, Aviles, I know Control-C, Control-V, copy-paste, and the shortcut master, right? In Google, it's actually Control-D. You can duplicate, control, copy, and paste in one button, right? It's the little things. So when you start to do that, right, you start to see a little bit of change, save a little bit of time, but you never know when you're going to stumble across like that big trick or that big thing that makes a huge difference. And when I was managing my one-to-one classroom, right, the big trick for me was Control-Shift-T. If you've never heard of Control-Shift-T, right, make sure it's something that you keep in the back of the head when you go to a one-to-one classroom. I call it tab roulette with my kids, right, because I always like to be proactive. I always like to introduce my kids to what I know about the internet, so they know that I know that they know that I know, right? Because you walk around, you'll see in a one-to-one classroom, kids are pretty savvy. They know that they can hit Alt-Tab on a Chromebook and they can switch their screens really quick while you're coming around. Or they can hit Alt-F4 and they can close all the windows before you can see what they're doing. Or Control-Shift-Q and Q on a Chromebook shuts it down, right? So we have to be as good as a cat as they are as a mouse. And that's where Control-Shift-T comes in. If I hold down Control-Shift every time I hit T, it will open up the last thing that they were looking at on their browser. And what's amazing about that is students don't own their Google accounts, the school does, right? So they can't delete their history. And so by holding down Control-Shift-T, right, we can see what they were up to. And I always love to hit Control, hold down Shift, I look at the kid. I go, every time I hit T for a window that pops up as a YouTube video or a Twitch stream, do we want to spend a day at attention with me? Right? And so they know that I know how this all works, right? So Control-Shift-T is a great way to manage, right, a one-to-one classroom. Another one is Control-H. Control-H will bring up their browsing history with a timestamp. It'll tell you what they were looking at, when they were looking at it. My favorite thing to do with that is take a screenshot and email it home. And look, your kid was watching YouTube videos, right, for 30 minutes of class today. Because at some point, they, especially at this level, right, they have to take they have to take advantage of their own learning, right? It's not my opportunity, it's not my job to force them to do something. So if the parents are okay with it, why am I going to fight that, right? So Control-H is another great tip for one-to-one. Another tip for one-to-one that isn't necessarily a tech tool, but another tip, right? have something similar, I call it half-mast. It's this idea that you should be using your Chromebooks intentionally in class. And so when they're using it, right, they're up, they're doing whatever they need to do. But when you need their attention or they're not supposed to be using it, having them close their lid to 45 degrees, right? So enough that they can't work on it, but not so much that it makes them have to restart the Chromebook, right? Control-Shift-T, Control-H, half-mast and circulating are all I've ever needed to control a one-to-one classroom, right? Those are the real big things. We talk about fundamentally controlling the classroom. Control-Shift-T, so you can show them that you know what they've been looking at. Control-H, so you can lay out before them what they've been looking at. Half-mast and circulating the classroom, right, has been really something super helpful for me. And again, these just all came from like playing around with shortcuts through my time as a teacher. One of the big things you want to move to as well when you get your one-to-one device is going to be Google Classroom. And Google Classroom, for a lot of reasons, is excellent, right? The main purpose of Google Classroom being that you hand out work, collect work, grade work, and give work back all online, right? That's the true purpose of Google Classroom. But there's some neat things that, as an educator, you want to be aware of. Again, some things that are going to save you guys time and energy. So if I head to my Google Classroom, right, one of the things that I want to show you right, is the stream. How many of you have experience with Google Classroom? Has anybody used it before? Oh, fantastic, good, this will make this so much easier. So in Google Classroom, right, again, it's not the tech, it's how you use it. The stream can be a really frustrating place sometimes. If you did not know, right, the stream is where kids can chat to each other, basically, if you don't turn it off. Now, I'm hoping you all know how to turn it off, but if not, if you come up here to that gear I just clicked on, and you'll see here in the general area, it says classwork stream. Students can post and comment, students can only post, only teacher can post and comment, right? As I said in my classroom, the first thing I do is make sure that I'm the only one that can post, because again, otherwise it turns into a crazy chat room real quick. However, this can be useful. I use this really, a great way, is as office hours. What I'll do sometimes, especially when I used to teach high school, right? I was at a high school where sports really seemed like the priority, right? As long as my kids were doing well on the field, like that seemed to be what mattered. So none of my kids would stay for extra help because they were all involved in sports. So what I said is, look guys, I'm gonna turn on students can comment, right? Students can post in the classroom every Tuesday and Thursday from like 6 to 8. If you need anything from me, I'll be in there. And so I would start to see kids would ask for help, kids would have questions, kids might just come to hang out, but actually using this like a chat room, right, because it acts a lot like Facebook, right, was really useful. And it was a way that I could help give an extra opportunity for kids, right, to come, you know, see me, meet with me, talk to me without actually having to be in person. Right, similar, I love to turn on the student can post and comment when we're watching movies. Right, because students, right, by nature, they just want to talk about the movie. So I found if I use this as a chat room during a movie, I can control and direct the conversation, right, to be about the movie as a whole class rather than just side conversations that maybe distract, right? So thinking about classroom again, handing in work, grading work, giving it back is what it's really for, but you can be pretty clever about it, using it for office hours, using it during movies, right, or just two fun ways. Are you guys familiar with Guardian summaries? Oh, perfect. So, as educators, right, we kind of want to talk to parents as little as humanly possible, right? And so one of the great things about Google Classroom is it has something called Guardian Email Summaries. And what that means is every time you as an educator post an assignment, post a grade, post something in the stream, it actually will be emailed home to parents if you set it up correctly. So if I come over to the People tab, you'll see on the right-hand side, some of these have emails, right? You'll see them load, right? You'll see different emails. What's great about this is this will email home the parent, right? All that stuff I just mentioned. So I'll show you an example. A parent can sign up to receive Google Guardian email summaries every day or on Fridays. And what they get home, right, is something that looks like this. It'll say Google Classroom, weekly summary, summary for Felix. It says work that they have missed, work that has been graded and what they got on that assignment, upcoming assignments, and then any announcements from the teacher. I love Guardian Summaries. I make sure that all of my kids have their parents' emails attached to it, because that's a way for me to have constant communication home without having to have constant communication home. A parent can get an email every day of grades, assignments, and missing assignments if they choose to, that I don't have to generate, right? Or they could just get it on Friday if that's what they prefer. And so this is something we do in my school as an entire district. We load in all the parent emails. You only ever have to do it once. It follows the kid throughout the system. But anything that goes into classroom, right, will get emailed home without you having to send that email. And for me, that's always been something that I really enjoy. Yes?
Where do I go to set up the Guardian email?
So once you load your kids, if you see here on the top right, it'll say, on the 3 dots, it'll say invite guardians. That's where you would enter that parent email, right?
I don't think we have that.
So I know for my school, we have Power School. I know that my old school, we had Genesis. And what we would do is we would just pull that email list out of our student information system and into Classroom. If that doesn't work, a really simple thing to do is to make a Google form that you either give to the students or somehow get home to the parents and ask them for their email. And that's the way you can get that into the system as well.
We only have the time for teachers and students.
Where are we talking about?
From the page that you're rendering.
Yeah, like when you go under people and you click the group chat and just
Oh, so that means whoever your Google administrator is needs to turn on that feature in the Google admin panel. You know, if you think about the Google admin panel, there's just a bunch of switches that got to get flipped one way or the other. But having Google Guardian emails is fantastic because, right, one of the biggest complaints that we hear from parents is they're caught off guard or they don't know what's going on. So literally sending home every day or every Friday all graded assignments, all missing assignments, all upcoming assignments, and then any announcements from the teacher without having to literally do anything except just keep up with your classroom, to me is a big win. So this is something we use all the time in my district. And then similar, Google Classroom can get overwhelming if you use it as much as you probably should be. And so one thing that I like to do, or I like to point out, is the fact that you can use tags to sort your work. So for instance, I kind of split mine up between grades, which is the top one, and then resources and jobs. And it's really easy. If you create an assignment, what you want to do is it'll say topic, and you can create a topic or reuse an old topic. So a lot of times, like let's say you want to call your first topic Unit 1, and then you have all the Unit 1 assignments or Unit 2 or whatever it may be. It's a great way to sort all of the work. Because again, sometimes your Google Classroom assignment list will get rather long. And once you have it sorted by, once you have it tagged, you can actually drag the whole tag, let's say, to the top, right? So if you have finished some of these assignments, you can move it to the bottom, the new stuff can go to the top, or you can sort it at a later date. And that way the kids are always getting the most relevant, important stuff up at the top, and it's clearly labeled, what it is and how it works. So I've always wanted to make sure that I'm using that as well. Something else that's really neat, and I'm not too sure, I was talking to the elementary this morning, and they did not see it. So I'm not sure if it's still in beta, because I get a lot of the cool tools before they come out, or if it's not flipped on in your district. But it's kind of hard to see, but you'll see it's grayed out right here. Google has released or will be releasing in the next couple of weeks their rubric feature, where you can put a rubric into Classroom and reuse the rubric on similar assignments. So if you guys haven't seen it, I know that the documentation is out for it. Again, I don't know if it's been released and you guys just don't have it on, or if I still have the beta Classroom version. But if you want to Google it, you want to check it out, you want to play with it, if you go look up rubrics in Google Classroom, it'll tell you about all how it works. And what's really great is you make one rubric, and then you can reuse that rubric for similar assignments over and over again without having to remake it. And it's a really nice way when you present it to kids for them to be able to see what they got on their rubric. So the rubric feature is really fantastic. And that's either coming soon or coming now. We just got to turn it on here. But that's the big things, right, when we're talking about classroom. Again, besides handing work out and collecting it and grading it and giving it back, the ability to use the chat, use the stream like a chat room sometimes has been really helpful. Guardian email summaries is like next level helpful. The ability to have rubrics, the ability to turn off the chat. And the last one I'll show you is a quick one. I know for me, it drives me nuts. Anytime basically a kid does anything in classroom, you get an email notification. And it is, right, it drives me nuts. So if you don't know how to turn that off, if you click up in the top left here, you go to settings, you'll see the email notification option is there. I turn them all off, but if I would slide that back over, you would see that you have a whole bunch of options about when you receive notifications, right? I just prefer to have them off. But you guys can go back and figure out when you want to get that email based on what students are doing. Yeah.
I have it might be better for another session, but if you use forms for an assignment, is there a specific way that they can save their work and come back to it, or they have to submit it?
So if you're giving, say, a quiz or a test or something like that in forms, generally it has to be completed in one session. There's no way to start a form and then finish it next class. Right. No, they don't have anything like that. So yeah, I'm trying to think. I don't know anything off the top of my head where they could save the work if they don't finish. In the back.
Yes, the email issue, that's one thing that I was dealing with that.
Sure.
But also when I upload a doc, and they have to finish the work on the doc and submit it.
Uh-huh.
Because I drive. So how can I just want to see it when I go to Google Classroom and click on that child's grade at work, but I don't want it to flood my drive. Is there any way to stop that?
Yeah, so here's what I would do. This is a little bit more technical, and we could talk a little bit about it later if it doesn't make much sense, but if you feel like you're getting overwhelmed in your Google Drive for students' work, right? When you first make a classroom for the very first time, you now have a folder called Classroom, right? If you're getting it all spilling into your drive, you might have deleted that folder or something has happened. But basically what it comes down to is if you don't have a folder called Classroom, make a folder called Classroom, and you can make all that work go into there. So that way, you know, that doesn't happen, right? So you might want to look in your drive. If you don't see a folder called Classroom, something happens to that folder, which is why it's just going into your main drive. And recreating that Classroom folder might work. So there's some stuff with Classroom, pretty neat. Something to think about, right, as you transition into a one-to-one, right? Using Google Classroom is going to make your life a lot easier. But we all know the heart of Google, right, is Google Drive. And so Google Drive, again, assuming everybody's at least familiar with the basics, Google Drive, you know, is the same to Microsoft Office. Google Docs is the same to Microsoft Word, right? They're basically the same. And here's what's really cool about this. If you are a Microsoft person and you're a little nervous about the transition, don't be nervous because the two play really well together. And I'll show you an example. If I take this doc right here toward the bottom and I right-click on it and I click on download, you'll see it says converting to Word, and it's actually going to download as a Word, right, a Microsoft Word file. So anything in Google, when downloaded, will convert to its Microsoft counterpart. It also works the opposite way. If I take that same Word file and I drop it back into Drive, you'll see it uploads it as a doc, and you can see it's got that little W, right, representing Word doc. If I right-click and I go to Open with Google Docs, it will convert from a Word file into a Google Doc, right? So that's everything that they have in Microsoft, right, will convert it. So if you are totally on Microsoft right now, converting to Drive, right, is super easy. It's going to do it all for you, and they've gotten really good at making sure the format and font and colors all stick, so there's very little redoing you actually have to do. And I would say most people probably know that, but in a similar vein maybe that some people don't know, is the same technology is actually used with PDFs. They have something, Google bought a company that invented optical character recognition, right, which is basically AI scans a document and it's taught itself what letters look like, and then it turns those letters into something that you can edit. So let's say I take this PDF I have on my desktop, you know, it's 40 pages. Imagine like this is something older that you have. You don't want to retype it, you don't want to copy and paste it, there's like pictures and stuff that you want to use. I load it into Drive, and I'll see it here in Drive as a PDF. If I right-click, open with Google Docs, it will convert that PDF into a Google Doc that then I can edit. So if you have any old worksheets, or if you have any old stuff that you happen to find, it will automatically move it over for you so you can then edit. If it's like a math worksheet, or if it has pictures, sometimes the formatting's not perfect, but it's way better than having to retype everything. So I found that a lot of people don't know about that one, but that could be super useful. The other thing too, I spend a lot of time in Drive, so I want to make sure my Drive is pretty. Right, you guys know that if I right-click, I can add folders, and then I can put folders inside of folders, and I can really organize my Drive. I can even right-click and I can change the color of my folders. I know a lot of people get very passionate about folder color, so if you want to color code your folders, if you want to put folders in folders, to me, right, Drive management is very sacred, especially where I teach now, 4th through 8th grade, I see 700 kids a week, and they're all turning stuff in. If my stuff wasn't like super organized, my life would be a nightmare, right? So know that you can make folders, put folders inside of folders, and then even color code it if you wanted to. Say again? Right click, and you're going to, oh no, I'm sorry, is it new? Yeah, we're gonna go new folder in the top left. Then you can add folders, and then again, you can put stuff into folders, you can put folders in folders. Super helpful to keep everything organized. And the other thing too I noticed that some people may not know about Drive is that there's 2 views. And just like people are passionate about the colors of their folders, I find that they're passionate about their views, right? A lot of people may put it in their match profile, what kind of view you enjoy. I like list view because it's compact, right? But up here, you'll see that there's something called grid view, where it's a lot bigger and you can actually see what the assignment looks like, for instance. So like that presentation, I can kind of see the title slide. So knowing that you can switch back and forth between views can be helpful as well, right? So just some stuff in Drive that's totally worth checking out. So another one that I would love to show you, and let me switch over to my teacher account, is similar to what we talked about earlier, and that is history. Right? When we browse the web, we develop a browser history. Kids can't get rid of the browser history. That's why Control-Shift-T works. That's why Control-H works. There's also something called version history. When I create a Google product, and every time I do something to that Google product, it saves over top of itself. It never deletes itself. It just creates layers on top of itself. Why is this important? Well, it allows me to dive into an artifact, a Google Doc slide, and see what's been going on inside of it, right? I can peel back the layers. This was, right, one of those things that totally changed, again, what I did in the classroom, just like Control-Shift-T did. Revision history, right? One of my favorite things to do is my students would come to me, Mr. Mills, why did I not do so well on that essay? Well, let's go to File, Revision History. Oh, you started last night at 3 o'clock in the morning. How well do you think you were going to do, right? And so that's what's amazing. This was made yesterday by Maya. Maya is a wonderful little egg that I have in 5th grade in the afternoon. And this is one of the artifacts she needed to turn in, and it's the instructions for how to play her cardboard arcade. And so if I go to File, I go to Version History, right? You'll see it opens up a whole bar on the right-hand side. I can then expand that bar to show everything that's ever been done, right, to this doc. And so if I go back to October 25th, 2:43 p.m. yesterday, it was born. And then I can hit my up arrow and I can see at 2:44, she wrote that. It's green, color-coded to her name, right? 2:48, so she stopped for 4 minutes and then worked on it again. And then at 2:52, right, she added some pictures. I can kind of guess, I bet between 2:42 and 2:50, she was probably taking pictures that she then, right? So you can start to piece together, A, what kids were doing, and B, right, Maya's in a group of 3. What are her other 2 partners doing that they haven't contributed to this, right? Because Maya's name is on it. Maya's work is color-coded in green, right? You'll see on the legend, that's what color that represents Maya. Things that are deleted have a strike through. Things that were just written are highlighted in green, so we know she added those 2 pictures. She wrote those words. What are her partners doing? Now I know as they were building the cardboard arcade, but as a teacher I now have evidence and I have things to talk about and discuss with my students. Guys, why is Maya the only one that contributed to this? Right? From an older upper grade level, you know what I love about this too? Besides that I can see when they start at 3 o'clock in the morning, if at 2:43 it's born, and then 2:45 the whole essay appears, they may have just copy and pasted off of somewhere, right? So things like Hapara and turnitin.com you don't really need if you have revision history and a little bit of common sense, right? And I just show my kids, look, 2:43 nothing, 2:45 a whole essay. You know, and they're fine. Well, I wrote it in Word first, and then I just copy pasted it over. Did you though? Right? Yeah.
I just wanted to back that up. It happened just this week with a student of my teacher 11th grade.
Yeah.
And my honor student said that she beat the assignment.
Right.
And I, using the revision history, found out that one student started at 7:30 the night before it was due. And I know earlier you were mentioning you were complaining about like, oh, we hate those email notifications.
Right.
I got 3 email notifications back to back that she was requesting to access another student's document.
Yep.
And she ultimately ended up submitting within an hour. This is something that took 2 weeks to do.
Right.
Within an hour, submitting something that she essentially went through her friend's document and changed all the verbs, thinking I wasn't going to English teacher wasn't going to pick up on that.
Right.
So that revision history is honestly like a godsend for, especially if it's like essays or social studies or something like that.
Yeah.
Because you're right, and a lot of them haven't realized yet that you can see all of that, and
and they can't delete it, they can't turn it off, they can't change it because they don't own it. And I'll say this, don't think that I'm only using this stuff, you know, retroactively or retribution, right? The idea for me is I let kids know, usually on the first day of school, hey, here's what I know. Revision history, I can see everything, right? So even by being proactive and knowing that when they request other people's documents, you know about it, or when they look at the revision history and you can see who, I mean, maybe you'll have it at the high school level, but down at the elementary school, I was telling them part of my job description is like Sherlock Google, because they wanted, like, you know, I'll have kids come crying, so-and-so deleted my work, or so-and-so's putting pictures in my thing, and somebody called me names in this thing, and revision history says who posted what picture, who deleted what, who called who a name, and so there's a whole, you know, and it always makes me laugh is, Joe, did you do, I didn't do it, version history, I'll stop, you know what I mean? It's concrete, yeah. Yeah. Yes. 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 Yeah. Yes. So on top of the rubric feature, the other feature that is rolling out or will roll out is the originality report. It's Google's efforts into, I mean, honestly, probably competing with turnitin.com and stuff like that. I too haven't really gotten too much into it. I don't know how I feel about it yet. There's a few things kind of like behind the curtain that I'm not thrilled about when it comes to ownership and work and citations and all that good stuff. So I'm still forming an opinion about how I feel about originality reports. It's the same issues I have with turnitin.com. But do know that is going to be an option, if it is not already for you, is to use that originality report. But I know for me, right, revision history is usually the only originality report I ever need. Yeah.
Can you correct me if I'm wrong though, once originality reports are out of beta, that will only be part of enterprise, so we will not have access to originality reports once it's out of beta. That's my understanding.
I'm pretty sure that education's gonna have it, because I don't know why they're pushing it into education classroom now. I mean, I totally could be wrong, like I said, I haven't played with it, but in the conversations I've been having with them, locking it to the business aspect doesn't make as much sense as the academics, and I know it's free for K-12 and maybe enterprises for college. But I mean, like I said, you may have researched it and totally could be right, but I haven't heard that one way or the other.
I think so. And the other thing, I guess, that differentiates it right now from turnitin.com, correct me if I'm wrong with this too, there's no bank of student papers currently that the paper's being checked against.
Right.
Which is something that I just ran into this week on Turnitin.com, a student submitting a paper from last year that they had already submitted to a
Right.
previous teacher. That wouldn't come up on our originality reports.
Right, and I think that's part of the problem that I may have with it, is because I believe that's Google's end game is to bank some of the student work, which I generally have a problem with, on top of the fact that they're also going to be using it for different AI applications. You know, and I'll kind of tell you like a quick, maybe interesting little behind the scenes thing. Like, you know how a CAPTCHA, you guys have to do the CAPTCHA and it says like decipher the letters and type it in, right? Or you do the CAPTCHA and you have to like, which of these images is a car, right? Do you know you're actually programming Google's AI, right? That's how Google's making their AI smarter, is you're teaching it what a car is, you're teaching it what the letter G is. So, I mean, kind of bigger picture stuff, I have some worries about that. I'm going to defer to you because you seemed like you kind of looked it up and stuff
I
like
just
that.
checked, so once it's out of beta, the education users will get 3 assignments per course at no charge, and then unlimited access will be G Suite Enterprise for education.
Okay, well, there we go. So let's stick with docs, and let's talk about how we can modify docs, and we can modify maybe some of the other things that we're doing at Google to, again, make learning a little bit more engaging, right? Make your lives a lot easier. One of my favorite things about Google are extensions. If you're not familiar with extensions, extensions live up here in the top right-hand corner. All those little images, those little square guys up there, those are called extensions. They modify the way that we use the internet, right? Or they modify the way we interact with Google products. And there's some really cool ones that I want to make sure you know about. The first one, if you want to follow along with me, is uBlock Origin, right? You know you did it right when you have, in the Google Chrome store, you find this guy here with the gray and the red shield. You have to add Google extensions to Chrome if you want to go and add it. What uBlock Origin does is it blocks every ad on the internet, including ads before YouTube videos. And so if you have this installed, right, you won't have to deal with the ads. To me, I always like to have this one on. So if I show you nothing else cool, at least you don't have to look at ads anymore, right? That's called uBlock Origin. It's an extension, yeah, in the Chrome store. And again, I'll give you a link to this presentation. You guys will have the links to everything. I just want to get as much in as I can for you. Another one is called Read and Write for Google. And Read and Write for Google is a great tool for a couple different reasons. If I open up this Google Doc, Read and Write for Google only works at Google Docs, and you kind of see the bar will pop up in a second once it loads. There it is. So you'll see this bar. Number one, Google Read and Write for Google has a lot of tools that some of your struggling learners may enjoy, especially if they get accommodations on like state testing. A lot of those accommodations can be kind of made through Google Read and Write. So for instance, one of the first options you have is predictive writing. As a student types, it predicts what they might want to write next. I know that's an accommodation, at least in New Jersey. Next to that, let's say I highlight the word product, I can click the dictionary button and it gives me the definitions right there. I know my students are a lot more willing to look up words, right, when it is, you know, they don't have to leave. And again, this is Read and Write for Google, right? It's an extension that we can install from the Chrome store. I'll give you guys the links at the end. But if you have ESL students whose English is not their first language, it also comes with a picture dictionary. And students can click picture dictionary, they can get some context clues, right, maybe start to figure out what some of these words mean. If your students would benefit of having things read to them, right, it will read to you.
Once you have a product,
and students can slow it down, speed it up, they can change who's speaking to them. I know a lot of my kids enjoy that. Another one that's on here is what's called Audio Maker. It will record your students reading. So if you have any benefit of recording your students reading, I know a lot of foreign language teachers use this. You can kind of be clever. I have some teachers who use this for podcasting, right? They use the audio recording to do podcasts. So like imagine this would be the script, and then they hit the audio record, and then they use the script to make their podcast. But for me, it all comes down to one thing, right? When we're talking about maybe top 5 things that fundamentally change the way I teach, we have that Control-Shift-T kind of dealing with browser history. We have that stuff in Google Classroom, right? Probably number 3 on my list is audio comments. audio comments, especially for older kids, are fantastic, right? I was a high school English teacher. Grading essays on paper, right, was way easier than grading online. Grading online is hard, right? I have found the best way to make my life easier is audio comments. And it also turns out it's better for kids, right? So using Google Read and Write is the fastest, best way that I've found to leave audio comments. And so if I highlight, what I want to leave the comment on, I hit the voice note button. This is me recording, leaving an audio comment. They could be up to a minute long. I hit stop. This is me recording, leaving an audio comment. I check it, I hit insert. Super, super fast, right? And what I love about this, when I hit insert, it will take the audio comment and it will actually put it into the comment section of the doc with a play button. And so when I highlight over this, this is me recording, leaving an audio comment. There it is. And what's cool about this is students don't need to have this installed to get the audio comments, right? As long as you have it. Now, right, talking about best practices, best tips, right? What I was so surprised about was this actually improved my relationship with students, right? Red ink on a paper just lets them know, right, they feel dumb, or more realistically, the teacher hates me, that's why I didn't do well, right? The audio comments, they can hear the positivity in my voice, right? And I do what my sister has called the crap sandwich, where I say something that they did well, things that they need to work on, what they did well, right? And I generally leave 3 comments, right, per assignment. This works right in Google Classroom. So if you go to Classroom and you're looking at a doc, you know how you can go through and see their work, right? This works right in that workflow that's through Classroom. And you can leave the audio comments super fast, but right, the other thing that the science tells us is as soon as you pair a grade with feedback, the feedback does not matter. So what I do is I do not put a grade anywhere on their paper. I don't even put their grades in Classroom, right? I'll do it in, we have Power School. I'll put the grade in the grade book in Power School. I don't actually put it in the classroom. And that's because I don't want them to know their grade until they've listened to the feedback. And so the other nice thing about having 3 audio comments, right, is I also put the first number of their grade at the end of the audio comment. So I might have, feedback, 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 0. Second comment, feedback, 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 9. Third comment, feedback, 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 2. Now they know they got a 92 on that assignment, but only after they listen to, right? Only after they listen to all of my feedback. Because some of your kids are gonna love the feedback, right? I had kids that didn't want anything to do with the feedback. What I get, cool, done, grade's over, I don't care. And that's how I had them listen to the feedback. So audio comments for me make it so much faster to grade, and the best way I've found to do audio comments is through Google Read and Write. Now, I told you I'm going to give you the presentation at the end, but I want to point out one thing. At the presentation, right, Read and Write for Google usually costs $150 a person per year, but you'll see that I also have a link that says free. If you click on it and you fill out that form, they will give it to you as an educator for free, so you don't have to pay for it. But it's important that you know that, because a lot of you are going to see it says expires in 30 days. You have to go register on their site, and they'll give it to you for free. And the same company makes something called Equatio. My wife is a math teacher. She swears by it. Apparently, if you struggle making like math worksheets online, right, it's hard to make the plus sign and the square root symbol and all that good stuff. Equatio is made, right, it's an extension made to make making math problems online easier. So if you're a math teacher, definitely check that out. I'm not, I've never used it, but I know anybody that I know that does math swears by it. And so there's a link to that one too. But what I want to leave you with as we start to wrap up is the biggest thing that has changed my teaching, and that's making videos. And the best way to make videos is an extension called screencastify. Right, it's this kind of peachy looking guy here. Again, I'll give you the link, but what's great about screencastify is once it's installed, watch how easy it is to make a video. I got my mic on, I got my webcam on, I'm gonna do the browser, I'm gonna hit record.
3,
Counts
2,
down.
1.
I can see myself at the bottom right hand corner. I have all my tools over here that I can annotate the screen with, and I can highlight and drag and show all that good stuff. When I'm done, I can pause, and then I can hit the stop button. And that quickly, I have a video corner, I have all my tools. Video, by far, is the best thing that you could do as an educator, right? Imagine, when I was teaching high school English, I would teach thesis in September. By November, nobody knew what a thesis was. So instead of repeating myself constantly, I just made a video. right? Be clever about it. My videos never said the year, the date, the time. I never said, oh, Joey, remember what we talked about? They were totally agnostic because I can use the same video 4 or 5 years in a row, right? So it may be a lot of work at the beginning to make the videos, but then you can use them, right, for the rest of the time. If a kid's absent, if a kid doesn't understand, right, they have the videos. And don't forget, a lot of this stuff can also be used to turn students into producers, not just consumers. My favorite end of the unit lesson, right, the real way that kids show me that they understand what they learned is, can they teach it to somebody else, right? They make videos that they teach somebody else how to do it. My wife does this really cool thing where she has all the kids record videos and then she puts them onto YouTube and then makes a playlist where the kids can watch 60 different examples made by their peers that teach them something, right? And maybe they didn't like the way Ben did it, but they like the way Charlotte did it. And what's great about videos, they can also go home, right? When students need the most help is during homework and we're not there, right? Let's not pretend. Most parents struggle with new math and science especially. So if you can turn that into a video, they can then help their students instead of, being as frustrated as the students are. So videos, for a number of different reasons, are fantastic. The fastest way to make videos, right, is through Screencastify. Totally free, 50 videos a month. I've never even come close to doing 50 videos a month. But once it's rendered and done, it gives you 3 things. It gives you a link to the video. It actually makes a folder in your Google Drive where you can have all of your videos stored. And then if you want to, and I encourage you to, it will automatically upload the video to your YouTube channel, right? Which is really nice as well. Because as an educator who has a Google account, you also have a YouTube account, whether you know it or not. YouTube has the fastest servers in the world. There's a big difference having everybody in your class watch a video out of like Google Drive versus everybody in your class watching a video on YouTube. And so that too is super valuable. But start to think about playing around with videos. Anything that you don't want to repeat, right? You eventually develop a video, but also you start to develop a culture against learned helplessness, right? My kids know that they can watch the video, ask Google, ask a friend, before they come ask me a lot of this basic stuff. And that elevates the learning of everybody in the classroom. So hopefully somewhere in there you got something cool. Make sure you play with it. I will put up the link to the presentation and myself. If you want to reach out, you want to talk, bit.ly.gcg suite, right? We'll give you my notes, we'll give you this presentation, links and all that good stuff. Thank you.
That was awesome.
Thanks.